A single dropped phone. A call from halfway across the world. For Lisa Hayes, a waitress drowning in student debt and the quiet hum of regret, it was just another Tuesday at a bustling New York diner. She had no idea she was about to step into the crosshairs of a corporate war, a silent battle waged in boardrooms and whispered over encrypted lines. In the next few hours, this ordinary woman, armed with nothing but a forgotten smartphone and a mind sharper than her boss's, knew would become the unlikely linchpin in a $10 billion deal. This isn't a fairy tale. This is the story of how one waitress answered a foreign call and ended up saving the most important client of Billionaire CEO Anthony Croft. The air in the Morning Glory diner on Lexington Avenue was a familiar symphony of chaos. The hiss of the griddle, the clatter of ceramic plates, the low roar of 100 conversations blending into a single anonymous hum. For Lisa Hayes, it was the soundtrack of her life, a life paused indefinitely. At 26, she moved with an efficiency that bordered on art. Her apron, stained with the ghosts of 1,000 coffee spills, was tied tight around a frame that was perpetually tired. 5 years ago, she'd been a top student at NYU Law, her mind lit up by torts and constitutional theory. Then her mother's multiple sclerosis had progressed, and the mountain of medical bills had buried her dreams. She'd traded case law for coffee pots, her ambitions shrinking to the size of a daily tip jar. Her mother, Eleanor, was the reason for it all. The smile Eleanor gave her each evening, frail but genuine, was the fuel that got Lisa through double shifts and aching feet. But the cost of care was a relentless tide, and Lisa was slowly drowning. Around 2:15 p.m. The bell above the diner door chimed, admitting a slice of a different world. 2 men in bespoke suits that probably cost more than her car slid into a corner booth. The older man had a gravitational pull to him. His silver-streaked hair was perfectly coiffed, and his eyes, a sharp, piercing blue, scanned the diner with an air of detached ownership. This was Anthony Croft, though Lisa didn't know it. He was the founder and CEO of Ethelred Capital, a private equity firm whose name was whispered with reverence and fear on Wall Street. The man opposite him, younger and visibly stressed, was Marcus Thorne, his senior vice president. Marcus's fingers drummed a nervous rhythm on the table, his gaze darting towards his phone every few seconds. "It's done. Marcus Anthony," said his voice, a low, confident baritone that cut through the diner's noise. "The contracts are with their legal team in Tokyo. All that's left is the final handshake. Yamada-san is old school. He needs that face-to-face confirmation." "I know," Marcus replied, loosening his tie. "But until his signature is on that paper, Project Nightingale is just $10 billion of wishful thinking. The moment it's signed, we become the biggest player in the Pacific Rim's tech sector. If it falls through, it won't fall through," Anthony stated, with a finality that left no room for argument. "Yamada Global Holdings needs our infrastructure as much as we need their capital. It's a perfect synergy." Lisa approached the table. "Hi, what can I get for you, gentlemen?" she asked, her voice polite, practiced, betraying none of the exhaustion behind her eyes. They ordered black coffee and nothing else. They were there to talk, not to eat. Lisa delivered the coffees and left them to their world of billions and synergies. For the next 20 minutes, their conversation was a low murmur of terms she vaguely recognized from her past life: due diligence, escrow, shareholder, approval. Then Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, a flicker of panic crossing his face. "It's my daughter's school. I have to take this." He stood up, almost knocking over his coffee. "Handle it," Anthony said, not looking up from his own device. Marcus rushed outside, his voice urgent as he spoke into the phone. A few minutes later, he returned looking even more frayed. Anthony was already standing, putting a crisp $50 bill on the table for 2 $5 coffees. "Let's go. We have a pre-briefing in an hour," Anthony commanded. They left as quickly as they had arrived, 2 sharks swimming back to deeper waters. Lisa cleared the table, pocketing the generous tip with a grateful sigh. It was another small drop in an ocean of debt, but it was something. She wiped the table clean, her thoughts already on the next order, the next customer, the relentless forward march of the shift. She didn't notice the sleek black smartphone lying face down on the vinyl seat, a silent, forgotten link to a $10 billion world. For another hour, the phone lay dormant, a black rectangle camouflaged against the dark red of the booth's upholstery. The lunch rush subsided, replaced by the slower pace of the late afternoon. Lisa was refilling salt shakers when a strange melodic chime cut through the diner's ambience. It wasn't the familiar jingle of a cheap burner phone or the latest pop song. It was a serene, layered harmony, elegant and utterly out of place. Lisa followed the sound to the corner booth. There it was. Marcus Thorne's phone. The screen was lit up, displaying a string of numbers preceded by a Platon 81. Japan. Below the number, in small English characters, was the name Yumi Sato. Her first instinct was to let it go to voicemail. It wasn't her phone, not her business. Her manager, a perpetually grumpy man named Sal, had a strict policy leave lost items in the box behind the counter, and never ever answer a ringing phone. It was a liability. The phone stopped ringing, and the screen went dark. Relief washed over Lisa. Problem solved. She picked it up, intending to hand it to Sal. But as she held it, the phone vibrated back to life. Yumi Sato was calling again, persistent. Lisa hesitated. A call from Japan at this hour. It was early morning there. It had to be important. The image of the stressed-out man, Marcus, flashed in her mind. He'd looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. What if this was the call he was waiting for? What if it was about his daughter, against her better judgment, against Sal's explicit rule? She swiped to answer. "Hello," she said, her voice quiet, uncertain. There was a pause on the other end, then a crisp female voice speaking perfect, lightly accented English. "I am trying to reach Marcus Thorne. To whom am I speaking?" "Oh, my name is Lisa. I'm a waitress at the Morning Glory Diner in New York. Mr. Thorne was here earlier. He must have left his phone." Another pause, longer this time. Lisa could hear the faint, sterile silence of a corporate office in the background. The woman on the other end seemed to be processing this unexpected development. "I see," the voice said, a sudden chill entering her tone. "That is unfortunate. My name is Yumi Sato. I am the executive assistant to Mr. Kenji Yamada, chairman of Yamada Global Holdings." The name clicked something in Lisa's memory. Yamada. It was the name she'd overheard from the CEO, Anthony Croft. This was big. "Can you please take a message for Mr. Thorne?" Yumi continued, her voice now a mask of professional courtesy. "Of course," Lisa said, grabbing a napkin and a pen from her apron. "Go ahead. Please inform Mr. Thorne, and by extension Mr. Croft, that Mr. Yamada has reviewed the final prospectus overnight. There have been some concerning developments. As a result, he is formally cancelling the finalization meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 0900 Tokyo time." Lisa's pen froze mid-scribble. The words hung in the air, each one landing like a block of ice. Cancelling the meeting, she remembered the snippets of conversation. 10 billion on the line. Project Nightingale. Cancelling Lisa echoed her voice, barely a whisper. I think there might be a mistake. They seemed very confident everything was fine. There is no mistake, Yumi said, her voice sharp and final. Information has come to our chairman's attention that calls the entire ethical and financial foundation of the Ethelred Capital Partnership into question. We consider this matter closed. Please relay the message. Goodbye. Before Lisa could say another word, the line went dead. She stood there in the middle of the diner, the phone still pressed to her ear, the dial tone a monotonous buzz. The sounds of the diner, the clinking of cutlery, a laugh from a nearby table seemed to be coming from a great distance. She looked down at the phone in her hand. This small device felt like it now weighed 1,000 pounds. A waitress from the Morning Glory diner was holding the wreckage of a $10 billion deal in the palm of her hand. And she was the only person in the world who knew it. Panic seized Lisa cold and sharp. Her mind, the one that used to deftly navigate complex legal arguments, was now racing through 1,000 frantic possibilities. She had to find them. She had to get this phone back to Marcus Thorne and deliver the devastating message. She ran to the front of the diner, scanning Lexington Avenue. The street was a blur of yellow cabs and hurried pedestrians. The two men were long gone, swallowed by the concrete canyons of Manhattan. "Sal, did you see which way those guys in the suits went?" she asked, her voice tight with urgency. Sal grunted from behind the counter, not looking up from his newspaper. They got in a black sedan. A Maybach looked like. "Don't know, don't care. You got tables that need bussing, Lisa." A Maybach, of course. They weren't just men in suits. They were titans of industry. Finding them would be like finding a specific grain of sand on a beach. Her heart hammered against her ribs. What should she do? Leave the phone with Sal. He'd just toss it in the lost and found box, and the message would die with it. Call the police. For a lost phone, they'd laugh her out of the precinct. She retreated to the employee break room, a cramped, windowless space that smelled of stale coffee and disinfectant. She stared at the phone. It was locked. A simple 4-digit passcode stood between her and any hope of contacting its owner. This was the moment of decision. To pry into a stranger's private life was a violation, a line she would never normally cross. But the cold final words of Yumi Sato echoed in her head. We consider this matter closed. She thought of Marcus, his worried face, the mention of his daughter. The stakes felt impossibly high, far beyond a simple lost and found item. Taking a deep breath, she tried the obvious. 234. Incorrect passcode. 00,000. Incorrect passcode. She thought about the man. Stressed a father. Maybe his daughter's birthday. She had no way of knowing that. Then an idea sparked. When Marcus had been drumming his fingers on the table, it wasn't random. It was a pattern. A 4-beat rhythm he repeated over and over. She closed her eyes, trying to recall it. Tap, tap. Tap. Tap, tap. It was a distinctive rhythm. She tried to visualize the keypad. What would that pattern look like? Her finger hovered over the screen. She mimicked the pattern. The top left corner, then the bottom right, then the top right, then the center. 2 to 9, 3, 5. Incorrect passcode. Damn it. She was running out of time. The men from Ethelred Capital were walking into a meeting tomorrow, a meeting that had already been cancelled to finalize a deal that was already dead. The humiliation, the financial fallout, it would be catastrophic. She tried to think like a lawyer again. Analyze the subject. Marcus was a man of routine and high pressure. His passcode wouldn't be sentimental. It would be functional, something he could type quickly without looking. She thought back to his nervous energy, his constant glancing at the phone. He was right-handed. His thumb would have a natural, efficient path. She traced a simple Z pattern across the screen with her mind. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9. Too complex. What about a simple, memorable shape? Her eyes fell on the phone's background, barely visible behind the passcode screen. It was a picture of a constellation. Orion. She'd studied astronomy as a hobby in college, a way to de-stress. She knew the pattern of the stars by heart. The 3 stars of Orion's belt were almost in a straight line. Maybe. She typed in the numbers corresponding to the stars' positions on the keypad. 7, 5, 3. Only 3 digits. No, wait. He was a numbers guy, a finance guy. Maybe it was related to his work. Ethelred Capital. She Googled the company on her own cheap phone. Founded in 1998. She tried 1998. Incorrect passcode. She was about to give up when she noticed something. The phone's case. It was a simple black leather case, but on the bottom corner, almost worn away, were 4 embossed letters. ALEX. Alex. The name of his daughter, perhaps. She'd heard him mention her. She typed the corresponding numbers on the keypad. 2539. Click. The phone unlocked. A wave of dizziness washed over Lisa. She was in. A grid of apps stared back at her email calendars, secure messaging platforms she'd never heard of. It felt like holding a master key to a secret kingdom. She ignored the personal messages and emails, her conscience dictating. She looked for one thing only, a way to contact Anthony Croft or Ethelred Capital. She opened the calendar. There it was highlighted in red. 08. EST 21:00 JST. Final pre-briefing for Project Nightingale. Location: Ethelred Capital HQ, 50 Hudson Yards. It was happening tonight, in just a few hours. She then saw another entry for the next morning. 06:00 EST 19:00 JST. Wheels up for Tokyo. They were flying out in the morning, completely oblivious. She had to get to them, but how? She couldn't just walk into one of the most secure buildings in New York and ask for the CEO. Her eyes scanned the screen, landing on a secure messaging app called Signal. There was a recent chat group named Nightingale Core Team. The last message was from Marcus, sent just before he'd entered the diner. On my way to meet JC. All quiet on the Eastern Front. Looks like clear skies ahead. Below it was a reply from someone named Damien V. Let's hope so. Wouldn't want any unexpected turbulence. By the way, saw this interesting analysis. Might be worth a read before you pop the champagne. Link. Lisa's blood ran cold. Unexpected turbulence. It was a premonition. With a shaking finger, she tapped the link. The link opened to a web page that looked at first glance like a legitimate financial news blog. Market Vulture Insights. The header read. The article's headline was sensational, designed to provoke maximum fear. Ethelred's unseen rot is the Nightingale deal. A house of cards built on unethical debt. Lisa, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs, began to read. Her law school training, dormant for years, kicked into high gear. She wasn't just reading the words. She was dissecting the argument, looking for fallacies for the subtle tells of fabrication. The article alleged that Ethelred Capital had used a series of offshore shell corporations to hide toxic debt and artificially inflate the value of the assets being leveraged in the Yamadanyada deal. It cited anonymous sources deep within the firm and referenced a supposed internal audit that had been buried. It was slick, persuasive, and filled with just enough technical jargon to sound authentic to an outsider. But to Lisa, something felt wrong. The sourcing was vague, a senior partner, an analyst with ethical concerns. The numbers didn't quite add up in a way she could feel in her gut, a structural weakness in the logic. Most damningly, the author of the piece was listed as M. Scott. A quick search on her own phone for M. Scott Market Vulture Insights yielded nothing. The author was a ghost. She scrolled back to the Signal chat. Who was Damien V., the person who had so helpfully sent this article to Marcus? She tapped his profile. Damien Vance. A quick Google search of his name alongside Ethelred Capital revealed everything. Damien Vance was the CEO of Vance Acquisitions, Ethelred's most aggressive and bitter rival. They had been locked in a bidding war for the same tech portfolio for months. Ethelred had won, and Project Nightingale was the culmination of that victory. Vance had lost. It was all there. A rival CEO sending a link to a damning untraceable article just before the biggest deal in his competitor's history was set to close. It wasn't a warning. It was sabotage. Lisa felt a surge of adrenaline. This interesting analysis was a poison pill, a sophisticated piece of corporate espionage designed to be forwarded to the Japanese team. Yamada Global Holdings, known for its extreme caution and emphasis on corporate honor, would never proceed if they caught even a whiff of scandal. Damien Vance had crafted the perfect weapon, a lie that looked exactly like the truth, and he had planted it right in Marcus Thorne's phone. She could picture the sequence of events perfectly. Marcus, seeing the message from a known rival, might have dismissed it. But what if someone on his team saw it? What if the link was forwarded? Or if Yamada's own people discovered it through their own intelligence channels? Damien had seeded the doubt, letting it fester. And Yumi Sato's words came back to her. Information has come to our chairman's attention that calls the entire ethical and financial foundation of the partnership into question. They had seen the article. The poison had worked. Lisa now held the entire puzzle in her hands. She knew the deal was cancelled. She knew why it was cancelled. And she knew it was all based on a sophisticated lie. But what could she do? She was a waitress. Her reality was burnt coffee and sticky tables. The world of Anthony Croft and Damien Vance was a foreign country. Walking into Ethelred Capital headquarters was impossible. They would never let her past the lobby. Calling the main line would get her routed to a junior assistant who would dismiss her as a crank. She looked at the time on the phone. 5:45 p.m. The pre-briefing was in 2 hours. They were preparing for a victory that had already been turned into a defeat. Her mind raced, sifting through the limited, desperate options. She couldn't get to Anthony Croft. She couldn't get to Marcus Thorne. But maybe she could get to the source of the problem. She opened the phone's call log. The last incoming call was from Yumi Sato. The number was right there. A direct line to the executive assistant of the man who had just killed the deal. It was a crazy idea. An insane, career-ending, potentially life-ruining idea. Calling the right hand of a Japanese billionaire to tell her that she and her boss had been duped by a fake news article, and who was the messenger. Not a CEO, not a lawyer, not even an intern. A waitress from a diner on Lexington Avenue. They would hang up on her. They might even think she was part of some elaborate prank or a bizarre extortion attempt. She thought of her mother, of the endless bills, of the feeling of being trapped. For 5 years, she had been powerless a spectator in her own life. But right now, in this grimy break room holding this phone, she wasn't. She held knowledge that was worth $10 billion. And for the first time, in a very long time, Lisa Hayes felt the flicker of a fire she thought had gone out years ago. She took a deep breath, her hand shaking, and pressed the call button. The phone began to dial Japan. The line rang 4 times, each ring stretching into an eternity. Lisa's heart was a drum solo against her ribs. She could hear Sal yelling from the diner, "Hayes, you got a 4 top waiting." She ignored him. The world had shrunk to the phone in her hand and the impossible conversation she was about to attempt. "Moshi Moshi," a voice answered, polite and professional. It was Yumi Sato. Lisa's throat went dry. "Ms. Sato. My name is Lisa Hayes. We spoke a little while ago. I'm the waitress from the diner in New York." There was a long, cold silence on the other end. Lisa could feel the disapproval radiating across the Pacific. "Yes," Yumi finally said, her tone clipped. "I have already given you the message for Mr. Thorne. There is nothing further to discuss." "Please," Lisa said, her voice steadier than she expected. "Please don't hang up. I know this is going to sound insane, but I believe Mr. Yamamada is about to make a $10 billion decision based on false information. Based on a lie." Another silence. This one was laced with incredulity. "Miss Hayes, you are a waitress. You cannot possibly comprehend the complexities of this transaction. Our decision is final and is based on credible intelligence." "Is that credible intelligence an article from a website called Market Vulture Insights?" Lisa shot back the words, tumbling out in a rush. The silence that followed was different. It wasn't dismissive anymore. It was sharp, alert, dull, and laced with shock. She had hit the bullseye. "How do you know about that?" Yumi asked, her voice losing its robotic calm for the first time. "Because I'm holding the phone where the link to that article was planted," Lisa explained, speaking quickly, trying to build her case before the window of opportunity slammed shut. "It was sent by Damian Vance, the CEO of Vance Acquisitions, Ethelred's biggest rival. The author M. Scott doesn't exist. The website was registered less than 2 weeks ago to a proxy service in Panama. It's a ghost site. It's a fabrication, Ms. Sato. A piece of corporate sabotage designed to look like investigative journalism." She laid it all out, the logic, the timing, the motive. She spoke not as a waitress, but as the law student she used to be, presenting an argument, connecting evidence, building an undeniable case. She explained how Vance stood to gain, how the article's anonymous sourcing was a classic red flag, how the entire narrative was constructed to prey on the exact fears a cautious investor like Yamada Global Holdings would have. Mr. Croft and Mr. Thorne don't even know the deal is off yet, Lisa pleaded, her voice filled with a desperate sincerity. They don't know why. They are walking into their final briefing tonight, completely blind. You cancelled based on a lie, and they don't even have a chance to defend themselves. For a full minute, the only sound was the faint transoceanic hum on the line. Yumi Sato was processing, weighing the sheer absurdity of the situation against the undeniable specific details the American waitress was providing. A stranger shouldn't know any of this. "What you are suggesting is a very serious accusation," Yumi said, her voice measured, cautious. "We have our own vetting processes. We do not make decisions of this magnitude lightly. And your process was hijacked, Lisa insisted, by a rival who knew exactly how you think. Please, I'm not asking you to reinstate the deal. I'm just asking you to pause, to give Mr. Croft a chance to respond to these allegations. An allegation he doesn't even know exists. Is that not honorable? To allow a man to face his accuser, even if the accuser is a ghost. She had used the right word. Honorable. It resonated. She could feel it. There was more silence, and Lisa could hear the faint murmur of Yumi speaking in rapid Japanese to someone else in the room. Her heart hammered. This was it. The moment it all hinged on. Yumi came back on the line. Her voice was different now, all business. Miss Hayes, what you say is compelling and highly irregular. We will not act on your word alone. However, the questions you raise merit a direct response. Lisa held her breath. You have 1 hour, Yumi stated. You have 1 hour to have Anthony Croft contact Mr. Yamada's personal office. He will need to be prepared to directly refute the specific claims made in the Market Vulture report. If we do not hear from him by 08:30 Tokyo time, our original decision stands, and we will sever all communication. Do you understand? Yes. Lisa breathed a wave of relief so powerful it made her dizzy. Yes, I understand. I will text the direct number for Mr. Yamada's Chief of Staff to this phone. It is to be used 1 time only. 1 hour, Miss Hayes. The line went dead. A moment later, the phone buzzed. A new text message appeared on the screen, containing a Japanese phone number and a simple message, 60 minutes. Lisa stared at the screen, her mind reeling. She had bought them 60 minutes. She had cracked open the door that had been slammed shut. Now came the impossible part, finding a billionaire who had no idea he needed to be found, and convincing him to make the most important phone call of his life, based on the word of the woman who was supposed to be refilling his coffee cup. And the clock was ticking. The world outside the diner's break room had turned a deep shade of twilight blue. The city lights beginning to prick the darkness. But for Lisa, the only light was the cold white glow of Marcus Thorne's phone. The clock on the wall showed 7:31 p.m. The 1 hour timer Yumi Sato had given her hadn't been a negotiation. It was a countdown to execution, with the time difference that meant the guillotine would fall in less than 45 minutes. Every second felt both infinitely long and terrifyingly brief. The cramped windowless room, which normally felt like a small, quiet sanctuary from the diner's chaos, now felt like a cage. The air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and bleach, a scent she would forever associate with the unique, heart-stopping terror of holding the fate of a global enterprise in her hands. Her first thought was a desperate, wild idea to call 911 and report a national security issue. She dismissed it as quickly as it came. They wouldn't mobilize the FBI for this. They'd send a squad car and 2 officers who would think she was delusional. No, her only path was through the corporate fortress itself, a fortress designed specifically to keep people like her out. Her hands, slick with sweat, fumbled as she found the main switchboard number for Ethelred Capital on their website. She took a steadying breath, trying to summon a voice of authority she hadn't used since her last moot court competition. Ethelred Capital, this is Cynthia speaking. How may I direct your call? The voice was impossibly crisp and professional, the audio equivalent of a starched white shirt. I need to speak to Anthony Croft immediately, Lisa said, aiming for a tone of brisk importance. I'm sorry Mr. Croft is in a priority meeting. and is not accepting any calls. Cynthia replied, her voice a pleasant, impenetrable wall. Would you like to leave a message with his executive assistant? This is an emergency, Lisa insisted, her voice rising slightly. It's regarding the final status of Project Nightingale. She threw the code name out like a grenade, hoping it would blast a hole in the corporate protocol. It barely made a dent. I understand, ma'am. All inquiries regarding Project Nightingale can be directed through our communications department. If you'll hold, I'll transfer you. No, don't transfer me. You don't understand. The project is... Lisa cried out. But it was too late. The soulless, looping melody of a Vivaldi concerto filled her ear. She was on hold, a nobody in a queue. Panic began to claw at her throat. Every moment she wasted listening to violins was a moment Anthony Croft was striding closer to a cliff he couldn't see. She stabbed the end call button and immediately redialed. A different operator answered this time. Lisa didn't give him a chance to speak. She changed tactics. The truth was a liability. A well-crafted lie was a key. I was just cut off, she said, her voice now sharp with fabricated frustration. I need to be put through to Marcus Thorne's office. My name is Dr. Evans from the Lenox Hill Pediatric Center. I have an urgent personal update on his daughter Alexandra. It felt like swallowing acid. Using a man's child, weaponizing a parent's greatest fear, made her feel sick to her stomach. But as she pictured the $10 billion deal collapsing on the heads of thousands of employees, all because of a lie from Damien Vance, she decided her own lie was the lesser of two evils. The operator's tone changed instantly, from robotic to deeply concerned. Oh, of course, Doctor. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. Please hold. I'm patching you directly to his executive assistant, Chloe. Seconds later, a new voice, warm and efficient, was on the line. Marcus Thorne's office, this is Chloe. Chloe, this is Dr. Evans, Lisa said, her heart hammering. I must speak with him now. It is a family emergency. Oh my goodness, Chloe said, her voice filled with genuine alarm. Doctor, I am so sorry, but he is in the Nightingale briefing with Mr. Croft. The entire executive floor is in a complete communication lockdown. It's a sealed room protocol. No phones, no tablets, no communication in or out until the briefing is concluded. It's to prevent any possibility of a security leak before the final signing. Is there a message I can have him call you about the absolute moment he's free? A sealed room. It was a dead end more final than any she could have imagined, a literal black box she couldn't penetrate. They were in a soundproof, signal-proof cage of their own, making toasting a victory that had already been turned into a historic defeat. Meanwhile, 60 floors above her, the atmosphere inside that sealed room was electric. The long mahogany table gleamed under the recessed lighting. Anthony Croft stood at its head, a rare, expansive smile on his face. He wasn't holding champagne that would be for tomorrow, but he held his glass of sparkling water as if it were a trophy. To the Nightingale, he said, his voice resonating with pride. To the years of work, the sleepless nights, the relentless pursuit of excellence. Tomorrow, we don't just acquire a portfolio. We reshape an industry. To all of you in this room, my thanks are not enough. You have delivered. A chorus of hear, hear, and the gentle clinking of glasses echoed in the room. Marcus Thorne, sitting to Anthony's right, felt a profound wave of relief wash over him. The anxiety that had plagued him for months had finally lifted. They had done it. The mood was one of quiet, deeply satisfied triumph. They were masters of the universe, standing at the summit completely oblivious to the fact that the ground beneath them had already given way. The spell was broken when the heavy oak doors opened with a barely audible swoosh. Anthony's personal assistant, Eliza, a fiercely competent woman who knew his rules better than he did, slipped inside her face a pale, grim mask. Her presence alone was a violation of the highest order, and a sudden, sharp silence fell over the room. She walked directly to Anthony, ignoring the questioning looks from the other executives, and whispered urgently in his ear. The team watched as color drained from Anthony Croft's face. His smile vanished, replaced by a look of sharp disbelief. "What do you mean, no comment?" He hissed, his voice a low, dangerous growl that sliced through the silence. Yamada-san's office just released a flash statement to the Nikkei and the Wall Street Journal's Asian edition. Eliza whispered back, her voice shaking almost imperceptibly as she held out a tablet. It says, Yamada Global Holdings is re-evaluating their North American expansion strategy and have no further comment on the status of any pending partnerships at this time. Our contacts in Tokyo say it's boardroom code for "the deal is dead." They're not answering our calls. It's a complete wall of silence. The tablet was passed to Marcus. As he read the headline, he went white as a sheet. "What? That's impossible. We got the final go-ahead from their legal team this morning." Pandemonium erupted. The triumphant calm shattered into 1,000 pieces of frantic, confused energy. VPs were grabbing their phones from the trays by the door, only to find them useless as they tried to get through to Tokyo. Anthony's face had become a mask of cold fury. This wasn't a negotiation tactic. This was a public execution, and he didn't even know why. "Get me Kenji Yamada on the phone," he roared, his voice echoing in the once celebratory room. "Get his assistants. Get the janitor in his building. Get me someone who can tell me what in the hell is going on now." Down in the diner's break room, Lisa was on her last resort. She had failed. The thought was a cold, hard stone in her stomach. She stared at the countdown on Marcus's phone, 19 minutes remaining. She had hit a brick wall, and time was bleeding out. In desperation, she opened the signal group again. Nightingale Core Team. Her eyes scanned the list of a dozen names. VPs, Senior Counsel Managing Directors. None of them would listen to her. They were as insulated as Croft himself. Then her eyes landed on a name near the bottom, James Howell, analyst. His profile picture was of a young man barely older than her, with a bright, eager look in his eyes. He didn't look jaded or cynical. He looked like someone who might still be scared of his bosses. Someone who might still believe in an emergency. The weakest link in the corporate armor, she thought. Tapping his profile, she found a link to his public LinkedIn page. From there, it took her 30 precious seconds to find his direct work extension, listed on an old university alumni page. It was a desperate, flimsy thread, a 1 in a million shot. She dialed the number. It rang 3 times. Then a young, slightly nervous voice answered. "James Howell." "James," Lisa said, her voice dropping to a low, urgent command that tolerated no argument. "My name is not important. What is important is that you listen to me very carefully. I have a message that needs to get to Anthony Croft within the next 5 minutes, or Project Nightingale is gone forever. I don't have time to explain who I am or how I know this, but your entire company is operating on a catastrophic misunderstanding." "Who is this? How did you get this number? I can't just—" "Damien Vance," Lisa cut in. The name a tactical weapon. The Market Vulture article. It was sabotage and it worked. The Japanese are pulling out because of it. They think the entire deal is built on a lie. You are all in a briefing room celebrating a ghost. There was a stunned, sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Oh my God," James whispered. "The floor is in chaos. We've been trying to figure out what's going on for the last 10 minutes. No one knows anything." "There is no time for chaos," Lisa snapped, her own desperation fueling her authority. "The Japanese gave me a 60-minute window to have Mr. Croft call them directly. That window closes in 11 minutes. You are the only person who can get a message to him. You need to get into that boardroom. Right now." "They're in a lockdown. There's security outside the door. I can't—" "Then you break the door down," Lisa yelled, her voice cracking with the sheer unbearable strain of it all. "Do you understand me, James? Get a pen. Write this down. You will walk up to Anthony Croft and you will say this exact sentence. 'The nightingale is singing the wrong song. The cage was built by Vance and Tokyo is closing the door in 10 minutes. And you will tell him the proof he needs is on Marcus Thorne's phone.'" "The cage was built by Vance," James repeated, his voice trembling as he typed furiously. Okay. I'll try." Lisa hung up. Her body was trembling. There was nothing more she could do. It was all in the hands of a junior analyst she had never met. She slumped against the grimy wall, a universe away from the pandemonium she had just unleashed 60 floors above her. She looked at the timer on the phone. 9 minutes remaining. The boardroom at Ethelred Capital felt like a tomb. The triumphant graphs on the screen seemed to mock the funereal silence. Anthony Croft was pacing like a sawn panther, his mind cycling through every possible reason for the deal's collapse. A regulatory snag, a last-minute counteroffer, a political issue. None of it made sense. Suddenly the heavy oak doors to the boardroom burst open. James Howell, the junior analyst, stood there, pale and panting, clutching a piece of paper. Security guards were right behind him, trying to pull him back. "Sir Mr. Croft," James yelled, ignoring the guards. "A message, it's urgent." Anthony shot him a look that could freeze fire. "This had better be the single most important thing you've ever said in your life, son." "I don't know what it means, sir," James stammered, holding out the note. "A woman called. She said to tell you this exactly. The nightingale is singing the wrong song. The cage was built by Vance, and Tokyo is closing the door in 10 minutes. She said the proof is on Marcus Thorne's phone." The room went silent. Anthony snatched the note. He read the words, his eyes narrowing. Vance. The name hit him like a physical blow. He turned to Marcus. "My phone." Marcus said, his face ashen as he patted his empty pockets. I don't have it. I must have left it at the diner." Everything clicked into place in Anthony's mind. The sabotage, the unknown woman, the diner, the phone. It was an impossible, insane chain of events, but it was the only thing that made sense. "Eliza," Anthony barked, "get me the number for the Morning Glory Diner on Lexington. Now." To Marcus he commanded, "Find that analyst's message from Vance. Check your tablet, your laptop, anything." While Eliza frantically searched for the diner's number, Marcus found the signal message from Damien Vance on his tablet, which synced with his phone. He opened the link. The Market Vulture article filled the screen. "My God," Marcus whispered, reading the headline. "Anthony, look at this." Anthony read the first paragraph, his face turning to stone. It was a masterpiece of deceit. At that moment, Eliza handed him a phone with the diner's main line already ringing. Sal answered gruffly. "Morning Glory." "This is Anthony Croft," he said, his voice dripping with an intensity that made Sal stand up straight. "One of my employees left a phone at your establishment. A woman, a waitress, is there. I need to speak to her. It is a matter of extreme urgency." "Yeah, Hayes," Sal yelled. "Phone." A moment later, Lisa's trembling voice came on the line. "Hello. This is Anthony Croft," he said. "Who is this?" "My name is Lisa Hayes. Miss Hayes, you have 4 minutes to tell me what I need to know." "You need to call this number," Lisa said, reading the direct line Yumi had texted her. "You need to tell Mr. Yamada that the Market Vulture article is a fabrication created by Damien Vance to sabotage the deal. Everything they think they know is a lie. The evidence is the message from Vance on Mr. Thorne's phone." Anthony scribbled the number down. He didn't question her. He didn't ask how she knew. The conviction in her voice, the sheer impossibility of her knowing these details, otherwise was enough. "Thank you, Miss Hayes," he said, a strange note of awe in his voice. "Stay where you are." He hung up and turned to his team. "Get me a secure line to Tokyo. Now." With less than 2 minutes to spare, Anthony Croft was patched through to Mr. Yamada's chief of staff. He didn't yell or make demands. He spoke calmly, methodically, laying out the corporate espionage with the precision of a surgeon. He explained Damien Vance's motive, the ghost website, the fake author. He had his team email a time-stamped screenshot of Vance's message to Marcus's phone as irrefutable proof of the setup. He was fighting for the life of his company, and his words were the only weapons he had. 2 hours later, Lisa was wiping down the last table of her shift. The diner was empty. The symphony of the day faded to a quiet hum. She was emotionally and physically exhausted, running on pure adrenaline. She had no idea what had happened after that frantic phone call. For all she knew, they hadn't believed her. The bell on the door chimed. Anthony Croft walked in alone this time. He wasn't wearing his suit jacket anymore. He looked tired, but the fury in his eyes had been replaced by a deep, thoughtful intensity. He walked directly to her. "Lisa Hayes," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," she replied, her voice small. He slid into the corner booth, the same one where it had all started. "The deal is back on," he said, his voice quiet. "Mr. Yamada sends his deepest apologies for the misunderstanding and his admiration for the unorthodox channels through which the truth was revealed." Lisa just nodded, unsure of what to say. "We spent the last hour with our lawyers," Anthony continued, looking at her intently. "They confirmed everything you deduced. The website's registration, the shell company that hosted it, all traced back to a holding company owned by Vance Acquisitions. You didn't just save a deal, Miss Hayes. You gave me the ammunition to bury my biggest rival in litigation for the next 20 years. He paused, studying her. "I looked you up," he said. "NYU Law. Dean's List. You dropped out 3 years ago." Lisa flinched, feeling exposed. "My mother got sick." "I know," he said softly. "My team is very thorough. I also know that you unlocked my SVP's phone-accessed confidential information and impersonated a doctor to get past my operator. By all rights, I should have you arrested." Lisa's stomach dropped. "But," he went on, a faint smile touching his lips, "you also demonstrated more initiative, analytical skill, and raw nerve in 3 hours than my entire risk management department does in a year. A mind like yours is wasted pouring coffee." He slid a business card across the table. It was his personal card. "I've already spoken with the NYU Dean of Admissions. Ethelred Capital is funding a full scholarship for you to complete your law degree starting this January. All expenses paid. We'll also be taking care of your mother's medical bills. All of them. Consider it a signing bonus." Lisa stared at him, speechless. Tears welled in her eyes. "A signing bonus for what?" she finally managed to whisper. "When you graduate," Anthony Croft said, standing up. "You have a job waiting for you in my firm's corporate counsel office. I don't hire people who follow the rules, Miss Hayes. I hire people who know when to break them for the right reason. You didn't just save my biggest client. You reminded me what true talent looks like." He turned and walked out of the diner, leaving Lisa standing in the quiet glow of the empty room. A forgotten smartphone, a business card, and the promise of a life she thought she had lost, forever resting on the table in front of her. The weight of an ordinary day had finally lifted. From pouring coffee to brokering a corporate ceasefire, Lisa Hayes' story is a powerful reminder that heroes aren't defined by their job titles, but by their actions in critical moments. It shows that intelligence, courage, and integrity can be found in the most unexpected places, and that one person truly can make a world of difference. She didn't just save a $10 billion deal. She reclaimed her own future, proving that the circumstances we find ourselves in don't have to define the person we are capable of becoming. If you were moved by Lisa's incredible story of quick thinking and bravery, please show your support by hitting that like button. It helps our channel more than you know. And for more unforgettable true-life dramas, just like this one, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that extraordinary potential often lies just beneath an ordinary surface. Thank you for listening.